What's up guys, Jordan from Bennett's Customs. We're back on another episode. And to be honest, this is gonna be an extremely exciting episode because I get to work with a very close friend of mine who I very much look up to. It is the Mad Scotsman, and we are gonna be working on this area here. This might look a little bit unfamiliar to you, but we are gonna be doing some really nice sand bent headers, some really cool custom flanges, and a lot of like artistry style stuff with texturing and different kind of metals. So it's gonna be really cool. I think it's gonna be something you guys will really enjoy. Yeah, make sure you guys follow along.
Take a sip, I'ma pack my grip. One more trip, and I'ma move on.
All right, so game plan. As you can see, this is the flathead that is in my Roadster, and it has a set of Ardun hemispherical heads on them. They were kind of designed and produced in the late 40s as an overhead valve conversion for the flatheads. And these are some mock-up heads from a really good friend of mine, Craig, at home. This whole setup is going into a 1932 heavily chopped 32 3-window. Craig has been collecting basically all the real deal bits for this car. And by real, I mean he has a very early stamped dated set of these hemispherical Ardun heads, which is really cool. So that brings us to here. I have a 32 frame. Everything is set up minus the body. We have different bodies. What we are going to be doing in this video is making a set of really nice sand bent headers for it. If you guys know, the Mad Scotsman is probably one of the most talented people I know, and especially when it comes to doing traditional sand bending. He's done ram horns for Triumphs that have won Born Frees. He's done stuff for people in Japan. He's done stuff for people all over the world. And he does everything from early bikes to big twins to car stuff and everything in between. And he's actually really ramping up that part of the business, which is really cool. So it's very nice to be able to have him in the workshop today to be able to create a set of pipes for this. So these pipes are going to be created. Then we're going to be able to send them back home to Canada, across the pond, and then Craig will be able to actually fit them on his car, knowing that this is the exact same setup that's going to be in his car itself. But the key in this is that Wayne is going to be doing the sand bending part of it, and I'm going to be creating the flanges that will hold these pipes. And we've come up with a really cool idea. I've done some sketches, and I think we're going to have a really neat contrast between the two. So I'm hoping I can put kind of my skills together to be able to create something that will complement the really nice soft drawn sand bent headers that are going to be on this thing. So there's going to be a lot involved in this episode. There's going to be tons of little tips and a lot of stuff just about texturing and molding and sort of blending, as well as watching the Scotsman do a few things. So let's get straight into it. All right, so while the Scotsman is doing those beautifully sand-bent headers, I need to try and up the game, complement those with something a little bit different for a flange plate. Typically, you just have a flat piece of, flat steel or whatever, and it's just, there's not much dressing done to it. It's just cut out, 2 holes, and it's welded directly to the pipe for your headers or exhaust. It's kind of one of those things that I don't think is, probably it's overlooked a little bit. And you know me, those are the ones that I literally, that's what I get fueled on, is those tiny little details that potentially could be overlooked or be more of like a second glance. That's what I like. I'm a second glance kind of guy. So I want to try and create something that emulates cast. It emulates magnesium or something along those lines. I want something that is a little bit rough, a little bit textured, that, has the opposite. So we're talking about balance. So these pipes are going to be, really nice, soft drawn bends. There's no harsh angles. Then they're going to be polished, then they're going to be chromed. So these are going to be such a smooth, nice looking piece. I want to create something that's kind of the opposite in order to have a bit of contrast between the two. Sort of, Beauty and the Beast per se. I have got these pipe connectors. They are threaded, unfortunately. Trying to find a standard drawn over mandrel or DOM pipe that's seamless, or even something that does have a seam in it that slides over that 44 mil or 44.1 mil 1 3/4 tubing is quite difficult. So if any of you guys are watching and you know of something that's thick walled, it can't be thin walled. The thick wall is very important because we are trying to create something that is almost like cast looking, right? So we can't have a really thin wall. I want a bit of contrast. I want a bit of a step. We have some 10 mil thick flat bar. I like using thick because, again, we're going to roll the edges. It's also nice to have a nice thick flange plate so that there's no warpage or any way of having any leaks. So that's what I'm going to use for cutting out our actual base. And what we're going to do is eventually create something that looks very similar to this. And we are going to change it into something like this. This is going to be something I'm going to explain how I even got that finish. Lots of blending, lots of texture, lots of, little neat tricks that you guys love to see and I love to kind of show you. So we're going to get right off the bat, get straight into it and measure out some of the sizes. I know what they are, so we're just going to clean this off and then use our little Posca marker. I'm just going to scribble all over this here. Basically the same thing as Dicom layout. I just don't have any, so I'm using this. And then we can scribe all of our holes, pre-drill everything, hole saw our holes, and then we can come over here and I'll show you how we're going to dress it all, weld it, and everything else. Okay, so what we have, I've kind of clamped it into place, but you just saw me, all I did was just hit it on the belt sander to clean it up, give a nice smooth radius, and now I would like to weld these together. So pretty self-explanatory, just got it nice and clamped down to the table to keep it flat, and then the slug that we actually took out of here, I've just stuck it on the top with a G-clamp holding it into place. So this way I can go all the way around with the TIG welder. We're going to TIG this in. It's not crucial at this point to obviously have a nice, like it doesn't need to be a perfect weld because we're going to be putting in a bunch of silicon bronze. But having said that, I do love to make sure that we are doing a nice, it's great practice. So you might as well try and obviously do your best and your best weld that you can possibly do. We have everything set up here. I have a pretty big cup size on this, so I would like to, I should probably change it out and go a little bit smaller. But that's all right, should be able to make do. Probably don't need that big of a lens, but what I am trying to cover is obviously getting into that joint. So when you're doing like a 90-degree joint in there, you really want to make sure that you can get the tungsten really close all the way around. We also have our filler rod. Everything has been wiped, prepped with a bit of metho. You could use acetone as well. But let's get this guy tacked into place all the way around. So now that we have both of these fully welded all the way around, we want to be able to add some material so that we can blend it. I really want that, the really smooth finish that almost emulates a cast look. So it has to have a really nice transition and almost look like it is one piece. So we're going to use silicon bronze for that. And that way I can just kind of build it up without putting too much in, heat, I guess, into the material itself. Silicon bronze has a lower burning temperature, so you don't have to ramp up those amperages in order to really push this stuff in. That way I can build it up, and then we can use the little finger grinder in order to kind of blend that radius all the way around. So that way we'll kind of get that, that nice radius that we're after. So I'm just going to set up the welder, and we are going to get straight into it. Round it a fair bit without hindering it too much. The reason I'm not using the vice grips is I just don't want to, I don't want to have the marks that the vice grip can give you, if that makes sense. Just the scoring of the teeth. So what I'm doing is I'm dabbing the bottom and the top. So I'm kind of doing almost like a figure eight. And that way I'm just trying to get as much material in there as possible, but knowing that I'm gonna try and scallop it out. So I'm really trying to keep it consistent and smooth so that there's no pits or holes that I have to try and fill afterwards. That's obviously just the plan, but sometimes it doesn't go, according to. I might just let that cool down for a sec before I go and turn it around. And then we can add the rest of the weld. We're gonna do both sides all the way around. And then once they're done, then we can get to the point of actually blending these. All right, so we have our pieces. I've just come over and I've stuck them in the vise. And then we're just gonna jump onto the little finger die grinder, whatever you wanna call this tiny little belt sander. And I'm just gonna use this to try and radius that little weld and try and blend them into obviously looking like two pieces. Being that this is obviously silicon bronze, it's quite soft, so it's pretty easy to sand. So it doesn't take too much effort to, kind of get quite good headway right off the bat. So we're definitely getting somewhere. We're just gonna have to keep going with it for a bit. Okay, so now we have them all blended, utilizing this little guy. Now I just want to kind of clean it up just a little bit more. It does such a good job if you're very patient with it and kind of really keep your wrists sort of going with it. So what I mean by that is I'm really trying to keep that flat surface even all the way around. I'm not going to, try and jar the corners. So I'm using that flat surface and it works really well. So now what I'd like to do is take one of our old 80 grit little octagon ones. We can actually just cut it into an octagon. You guys usually see me using square ones. This kind of does the same thing, although sometimes I like the square a bit better because it is less contact that's kind of touching it. But this works really well for blending, and that's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to blend. So I'm going to stick it on our 90-degree air grinder, and this just has a really soft backing on it, and it's actually quite small. I've cut this one down, and that just basically helps so that there's nothing on the backside, so that when this does make contact, these roll up, and then you can kind of just rip it around, do it super quick, easy, and it'll kind of help blend a little bit more. So I'm going to show you how I'm going to do that now. I'm just going to hold it as well. It's a little bit easier to do. And all that's doing is I'm going around that corner and these are just pulling up. So it's giving it, allowing it to flex. And then it's just kind of taking off just a little bit of material where you want it to. So this is really good for blending. I absolutely love this tip that I've saw. It was actually credit to Jason Fares, beautiful motorcycle builder, builds some very nice choppers. And again, he was the one that showed me. It was just a random little thing he had on Instagram, so I take absolutely no credit for it. But I know lots of people do it. He probably saw it from someone else, but that's kind of the source of where I saw it. And credit to him because it's something I literally use every single day. Every day I use this little setup. So it works amazing.
fiddle tunes and homemade booze, but it always goes too far. Shooting pool, crack a jack, take off now and don't look back. But hey, don't you wanna play? Hold on, sugar, why you look so sad? Come on now, mama, ain't nothing here so bad. You got fast cars, movie stars.
Okay, so where are we at? We have cleaned up the back sides. I've just added a little bit of weld in those areas that just kind of needed it. Obviously this one's our one that we've already done. This one's very close. We've already scalped this edge, and that's what I'm about to do now. So with these guys, I wanted to emulate like a little rivet or something, so I was able to add one right at the top. It's probably not even necessary. It's obviously just a faux rivet. It's not real, but I think it kind of adds to that, sort of cast, look, I guess. So that one's kind of where we're at. This one's already scalloped, and all I've done there is just cut it out with the grinder, and then I've just sort of, used the flat disc on the grinder there to notch it out. So once I have both these notched out, we'll drill the hole, we'll add the rivet, I'll weld it from the back side, and we'll just clean it up on the inside.
Alright, mama, sure is getting late. Come on now, mama, don't you hesitate. Grab my hand, well we land. I got the champagne. Get back, get on track, jump on.
Because these are threaded on the inside as well, it sort of makes it a bit of a pain in the butt. So I will have to just add a little bit of silicon bronze after we've blended it so you don't see those steps. And then that way we can smooth it all out so it looks like it hadn't been done. Obviously in the future, I intend to not be using pipe connectors to do this, but no harm in doing it. Once the pipe is actually slid up into place and welded on the inside, you're never going to see it. I don't really necessarily want to weld the pipe around here. I want to leave that nice clean look, so there's like a bit of a transition. So I think that'll look really cool. So I'm just going to put these over into the vise, and then I can use the grinder to clean them up. But there you have all three done. This is our test one that we've already done, so now we have 4 for one side. Now, this is the fun bit. So, needle scaler, you guys have seen me use this. If not, This is a great thing to get scale off of, you know, like whatever type of heavy machinery you're using or old paint. You can actually take all these out individually and file them down to a point or dull them out like I did. I sometimes freshen them up. Usually they're kind of set where I like them and I'll just let them go. Again, another thing this is really useful for is actually doing welds, and you peen it. So it's technically makes it stronger, less cracks, you know, certain things like that. This thing is robust, it is heavy, it is long, it does all the stuff it needs to do as far as texturing goes. But what we are trying to emulate is obviously sort of a roughed cast look. So even if you were to think of like shot blasting it maybe or something like that. So what I want to do is I'm going to go and stick this over into the vise. We're just going to use 2 old dome nuts that we used to do this one. These are going to slide down into position like so. They're going to hold it into the vise, and we're going to go hammer and tongs with this guy. And I'm going to show you the difference between the 2 of them once we're finished. So we got our needle scaler, locked it into the vise. It's got a little bit of play, but that's all right. That can kind of help with us. And we are basically just going to run around the whole lot and try and texture it as much as possible. So let's get straight into it. Wow, does a great job quickly. It actually, because you're hitting it with this, and this contact point is obviously polished due to like hitting it so many times, so it's kind of polished itself. So this is transferring into this, very much like if you were to use a planishing hammer and a dolly, right? Or an English wheel, or you know, the planishing hammer itself. Those clean, flat, smooth dies transfer that surface into your material. So it actually becomes really shiny in all those tiny little pits. So it's kind of cool. All right, so this is a really cool one. This is like a good part of the video right here. So you guys have probably been looking at the screen wondering how I got this finish, and a lot of you probably know how to do it. Others maybe not, but I'm about to show you. So this is basically brass. It's got a brass coating on it, and what I've done was I've used a brass brush that's got the little brass frills on it. It was a little bit longer. Obviously, I've used this a lot for this technique, so it's just slowly burned out over the time. But what you do is you actually heat up the material and you're gonna rub this into it. And what happens is obviously the brass has a lower burning temperature, very similar to the silicon bronze. So once this is warmed to a certain temperature, I don't exactly know what that is, but I can feel it with the torch. You rub this in and the brass actually transfers onto that material. So it's really cool. You can do it with like kind of any bit of steel if you really wanted to. So it's a super simple process. You can kind of add or, you know, add more or less, however you want to do it. But it is really fun and it's something different. So again, in the beginning of the video, I had mentioned, oh, I don't want it to be too like, you know, walk into a temple and see beautiful like brass murals or something like that. I want it to sort of keep to the, you know, the era and the style and the colors or materials that are used on this car. So there's a lot of cast aluminum, there's some polished bits, there's lots of chrome, old chrome, and then, you know, kind of raw paint and very, you know, like nothing really nice and perfect. So that's kind of was trying to make something perfectly imperfect in order to complement the nice, you know, really soft drawn and future chromed pipes. So I'm going to show you how to do this. I'm going to show the process. Hopefully it'll kind of, you know, obviously try and look the part and show what we're trying to do here. So, torch, brass brush. We are going to run this all along this guy just to get it nice and warm. Even like if we heated this up, hit it with the sandblaster and then oiled it, you know, that would be a really nice look too. So I'm not totally sold on the brass look, but because we've already done one, I thought might as well do the next three and then stick them on the car and kind of, you know, have a bit of a look and see, hey, that looks good, or nah, that doesn't look too good. So the fun thing is we can just sandblast them, or, you know, do that dark stain on them or whatever. Or maybe we just paint them, high heat paint, I don't know. All right, so probably at a good temperature now where we can start to get this brass in there. And all you do is just sort of heat it up, and then you just kind of wipe and rub this in. And it doesn't take too much. You can already see it applying there. It's kind of hard to see also because the heat has kind of colored it already. But it is a really neat way of creating a different coating on a different texture, you know, like it almost looks like we had cast this in like a bronze or in a brass, right? And that was kind of the whole idea. I really like working with brass and bronze. I feel like, I don't know, I think Carl really got me inspired using it. He loves using it, and he's very talented with what he comes up with you know, certain ideas and stuff like that. So I always kind of got inspired by him and have tried to make different things. And I do believe that like too much can be a lot. And so in those kind of areas that you add it, it can really add a whole lot of sort of pack to the punch, you know? So you want to be real sort of careful where you use it, and it doesn't need a whole lot, so it does look really cool. So you can already see that it's transferring it, and I'll get the camera and I'll kind of come in and really get it close and show you. A wood handled one of these would be better than the plastic. Sometimes the plastic touches, and what happens is obviously it melts on there, so you need to try and burn it off. So if you were to get get one of these, just get one that's got a wood handle, and it's just a cheapie, right? Because you're kind of using it. You know, you're not going to be using this as a brush afterwards, because it does sort of melt that material off a little bit. And then might just kind of heat it up a bit more, and then we'll just let it sit. What I'm trying to do is just darken it a little bit. It's probably a bit light, so if you heat this up and then let it cool down, it'll kind of change the color slightly. But it is a lot of fun to do. It's just cool, like experimenting with stuff like this. Like, never be afraid to, you know, just give it a crack, see what happens. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work, but it's a pretty cool way of being able to create something like this. So now you can see it's basically, looks like we've just cast it out of brass, and that was the whole idea. So now we have 2 more to do, and then we are going to get these things, and I'm going to show you on a piece of pipe that I've already polished the contrast so you can kind of see where I was going with this. And then we're going to get them fitted on the car on one side, have a look at it, maybe put the Ardun valve cover back on, and stand back and really get an appearance for it. The pipes are all finished already, the tips are not, so I'll kind of explain that when we jump over to the car. Well, there you have it. It is really cool to be able to create something like this. And now we have 4. This is the original one, and you can see the color difference. It's a little bit darker. That's because I did add a little bit of stain to this. So I'll probably end up doing the same to the rest of them once we get them all on there. But really cool little way of creating something that is so different. And you know, we still haven't even got them on there, but what I wanted to do was, we have this pipe here, and this pipe is mod steel. This is the exact same stuff that we have used for the exhaust itself, and I just put it through on the buff just really quickly just to see what it was going to look like. And what I want to do is actually show you the difference in these two. So if you can imagine, that is now going to be part of the exhaust. So if you had 4 of these coming out, and you have your contrast between the rough casting that's almost like that bronzy brass look, and then you have this beautifully soft drawn, pulled, you know, chrome pipe. So that's why I don't want to weld around here either, and if I do, I'll probably just try and braze it with like a really minor amount of braze, but I don't think I will. I think once it's actually chromed, I'll be able to tack this inside and weld that, and I shouldn't have too much heat registration or, you know, like any witness marks of the heat actually coming out here. It should stay pretty clean. But that's like, you know, that is such a neat look, and it's so different for an exhaust flange that I just feel, you know, like we could really complement something and really push the envelope as far as artistry goes with this type of stuff. So these are, you know, something that's really neat to be able to do. And it's, you know, it's obviously a lot more work than just cutting out, you know, a plate or getting someone to cut it out. And hindsight, once that CNC table is going to be up and running, which is very, very soon, as in like soon, then we could, you know, cut these out and have them designed so we could cut them out, weld them into maybe not these pipe flanges, but something similar that would just be smooth on the inside. Maybe I get a couple of them machined. But that way, you know, you have something a little bit different in order to create a piece that's, again, sort of overlooked. So what I'd like to do is just jump over to the car. I want to stick these on. I want to show you guys, and you know, we can kind of go from there and really get that visual of those pipes with these on there. So we've got both the back ones on, and what I'd like to do is just try and fit the pipes into place so I know the orientation, and then we're going to take this guy off and fit them all on, and then we're going to stand back and really have that sort of setup and see what they're going to look like. So they are a little bit finicky to get up into place. Really see, you know, what I was trying to achieve here with adding some contrast to the really nice sand bent pipes that the Scotsman's created. So these obviously have a really nice flow. There's no straight bits to them. They kind of come down, they sweep, and then they come out sort of, you know, back here. We haven't finalized what we're going to do with the back yet, but I'm thinking maybe sort of offset with a little flare. And then we can, you know, run a set of baffles inside of them. So this, the whole setup is just, you know, it's a long pipe, and I think that the sound that's going to come out of this, obviously being like a blown Ardun head that's fully worked, like it's going to be really, really cool. So to be able to, you know, add a piece sort of in this little window here that kind of really adds to the whole, you know, aspect of the car and all the small details and stuff like that, I think it's going to be really neat. What I'd like to do is get a visual. This is the mock-up Ardun heads. So if we stick this guy on, I should be able to, holy, yeah, that looks wicked. You know, so if you can imagine, that's going to be there. You got your spark plugs coming out of here, being that it is a hemispherical head design with these Ardun overhead valve setups. And then you got these that are going to be all chromed, split wishbones that come to about here. They're all old chrome. Like, it's going to look really, really cool. And I think what we could do is just throw an intake and carb setup on the top to get an absolute visual, which will definitely you know, add to the punch. So this is roughly where the intake setup would be on this. But, you know, just to be able to stand back and go, holy cow, that looks the part. But that is something, I don't know, that just ticks all the boxes. I think that looks so cool. Just a small detail that, again, is very overlooked. You know, and like a lot of really fun sort of, you know, tips and tricks throughout that video with the blending and the texturing, the brass transferring. That was really cool to be able to show you guys. And I think, you know, let me know what you guys think in the comments, whether or not we should leave them sort of this brassy kind of bronze looking color, or if you guys would like to see them more of a, you know, more of like a magnesium look, like if we were to sandblast them and then oil them or something like that. So We could even do one on one side and the other and have them completely different both sides, so you get two different images, which would be really neat too. So, and just imagine, you know, these are going to be, again, fully chromed. So we're going to have a lot of contrast through here. It's going to look really cool. But, you know, again, thank you very much to the Scotsman. Extremely talented guy. I just get so fueled when he's in the workshop or around. His artistic ability is just, you know, it's bar none. Like, you can't top it. So it's really cool to be able to sort of work alongside him, creating a piece, you know, that kind of brings it all together, but two different contrasts, you know, within the pipes themselves. So really stoked on how they turned out. Not really that stoked on making 4 more, but you know, it's all part of the details. These things take time, and they're the ones that speak volumes. So yeah, make sure you guys like, subscribe, hit notifications, and we will see you next week on Bennett's Customs.